Hello, this is Charles Scoville, your Golden Harvest agronomist with your Focus Friday here on September the 15th. So this week, I want to talk a little bit more about our heat unit update and when we can expect that first frost this fall. Did a little digging into that. Also had a chance to travel to north central Illinois this week for the precision planting event. Thought I'd give you a little update on the progress of the crop along that travel. I want to talk a little bit about some color we're seeing in corn, some yellows, browns, and even purples out there and what those might mean. And finally, did a little dig into some soybeans, looking at the nodules. Interesting what we're seeing as far as the color inside those today. I wonder if you cut any of those open lately. So let's go ahead and get started with that and talk a little bit about where we are at. So did a little math on the heat unit accumulation. So seeing a lot of corn that is at dent, working its way towards half milk line. That takes 220 heat units to do that. And then, more importantly, from half milk line to get to black layer, another 200 heat units after that. So if we're only at dent today and you add those together, that's about 420 heat units. Or if we take the average that we're expecting over the next week, which figures to be about 12 and a half heat units a day, that's going to take us 33 days or until October the 17th to get anything that's just at dent now all the way to black layer. Now, if that is at half milk line, and I've seen some mid 90-day corn planted at normal times in mid-Michigan here that is at half milk line right now, another 200 heat units to get it there means 16 days or September the 30th. That could hit black layer here. Now, the good news as well is they are calling for some warmer than average temperatures over the next couple of weeks, and that might move these right along. The thing, though, that of course concerns me is that yesterday at a field day, I was handed an ear of corn that was still in the milk stage. So that's got to go from milk to dough to dent to half milk line to black layer. And that total really is about 68 days or November the 21st. And I don't know we ever got a chance to make it that far without that first killing frost. But, I did a little looking in, and the first light frost expected based upon the Farmer's Almanac is going to be for the East Lansing area around the 6th of October, and then 7th, 8th, and 9th of October for Blissfield, Allegan, and Sandusky areas. Now, that's a light frost. That's not going to really kill us out there. We think about what it takes to be a killing frost for our corn crop out there, and normally we've got to see 2 to 3 hours worth of temperatures getting down in that 28-degree mark or so. I mean, we can frost off some leaves and that type of stuff before that, but to really kill that stalk and that ear and shut that plant down completely, we gotta be pretty cold for a little bit there. So, I think we got a chance of finishing this crop pretty good, but we're gonna have some of those ears that, boy, they just were in dry soil, germinated late, and it's gonna cause some continued challenges for harvest this fall. But again, just wanted to do the math for you a little bit and let you know where we're sitting today. As far as the travels to northern Illinois, their crop is certainly further ahead than what we are. Was surprised to see how much corn is starting to turn yellow to brown and just naturally maturing down, and some disease as well. We'll talk about it in a minute here. The soybeans were starting to drop leaves and turning yellow and senescing down. I saw some beans that quite honestly might get harvested as early as next week. And so their crop is well ahead of where we're at today. But they've also had some drought conditions in places there and further west that probably aren't going to help that top end yield any for them. As far as I wanted to hit the color on our corn here right now. And so it's interesting, the yellow corn that we're seeing. Anytime we put as much water and moisture and rain through our soil profile, we're going to wash away some of that nitrogen from the growing zone of those roots. And I think that's a lot of we're seeing. We know for that nitrogen deficiency, we see that V-shaped lesion working from the bottom of that leaf on up to the towards the top of that plant. And our real concerns happen, of course, when we start to see that deficiency showing on the ear leaf, working its way that high in the plant. And we're starting to see some of that working its way pretty fast up those plants. Certainly too late to do much about that today, but being aware of those things as we manage our nitrogen in the future. Also, seeing a fair amount of brown leaves out there. So, in many cases, it looks to be anthracnose stalk rot. Sometimes it works from the top down. It almost looks like somebody's took an iron and laid it on the top of the crop and kind of burn it down from the top. And other times we just see it as different leaves on those plants turning brown and senescing very quickly. Some genetics are more prone to anthracnose than others, and something to keep an eye out for you as you're evaluating your genetics this year and making your seed purchase choices for this next year. And then, of course, it's always interesting to see those purple stalks out there. We often see them at the edges of the fields, along the borders. And, if you go and inspect those plants, you will always see that there is usually no ear at all left on those plants, or just a nubbin of an ear. And in most cases, it's places where the deer, of course, have walked past those, nibbled on that ear, and the plant is fully there. So it's producing all kinds of sugars to go and fill and create yield in those ears there. And when there's no ear to fill, those sugars are just backing up in that plant. And they, just like we see sugars backing up in plants when they're 2 to 3 inches tall in the spring of the year, it's the same effect this time of the year, where those sugars just have no place to go. And so it really stands out like a sore thumb. But if you haven't seen that before, investigate those plants and you'll notice that they just don't have an ear on there. And then the last thing we'll talk about is soybean nodulization right now. And, we're getting near the end of the crop, but I was digging up some plants that were still relatively green out there and got my little knife out, cut open the nodules. And for the most part, those nodules are done producing nitrogen. They are no longer that red kind of salmon color inside there. You open them up and they're green or they're brown and decaying down. And so that's a good indication that they are getting close to dropping leaves and wrapping up their life cycle there, because they've pretty much utilized all the nitrogen that they're going to this year. So I am kind of excited about the potential of this year's soybean crop as we think about moisture in August and September. Really gives the chance of putting some size on those beans. And even though, some of the heat early on and some of the dry might have reduced some of the numbers of beans, I think we're going to make that up and then some by having some good size beans in our harvest this year. Obviously, the challenges are going to be those things that have limited the yield, whether it's white mold and all kinds of fields that look to be pretty high-yielding fields prior to the last couple of weeks, and a fair amount of sudden death in a number of fields too. But outside of those fields hitting the disease, I think the rest of the crop should look pretty good as we get into harvest this year. And of course, those are fields we want to make sure that we target for management next year if we do see some of those disease issues coming in, to try to avoid repeating that again. So again, another interesting week out here in the field in Michigan. If you got any questions, always give me a call, and we look forward to getting to harvest as soon as possible. Again, this is Charles Scoville, your Golden Harvest agronomist, with your Agronomy in Action Focus Friday.